Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Round Table.
You're listening to Round Table. I'm Fei Fei, together with Steve Hatherley and Yushun. Coming up, think about something you held on to too long. A job, a project, a goal that wasn't working. We love stories about people who never gave up. But staying with the wrong thing can also drain years of your life. So here's the real question. How do you know when it's time to let go? Our podcast listeners can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcast. And also, please don't forget that we want to hear from you. An email is great, but a voice memo is super great. Send those our way with your thoughts on any of the issues that we discuss on the show to roundtablepodcast@qq.com. And now, let's dive into the world of knowing when to quit. We're growing up hearing the same message over and over again. Don't quit. Push through. Keep grinding. And we love stories about perseverance, the entrepreneur who almost gave up before becoming successful, the athletes who kept training after failures, and the artist rejected 100 times before finally making it. But what if perseverance is sometimes the wrong move? What if there are moments where continuing to force something actually becomes the thing holding you back? Because quitting feels like failure emotionally, but staying with the wrong thing for too long can drain years of your life. And when it comes to the business world, they reveal this in a very interesting way. Some of the biggest companies in the world didn't succeed because they never gave up. They succeeded because they knew when to stop forcing the wrong idea. So today we want to talk about that line between resilience and denial, and how do you actually know when it's time to let something go?
I think if we got it right all the time, our lives might be different than what they are now, because knowing when to quit is, maybe it's even a skill. Now that I say it
It's
out
a hard
loud.
choice for sure, Steve.
Right? So yeah, we can find plenty of business examples. And I want to start with one from one of the better-known companies from around the world, Facebook. Examples from businesses where they decided, okay, this is enough. We're going to change course now. Do you remember when Facebook rebranded itself as Meta? That was back in 2021. And I remember at the time, and this was a common response to when that happened, everybody was like, huh? What? Why?
Yeah.
What's going on? So the company at that time made a huge bet on something that they called the metaverse, right? And the idea was that in the future, people would work and hang out and play games and attend meetings all inside this immersive virtual reality world. And they invested tens of billions of dollars into building this future. And that included the VR headsets that nobody really liked when they came out, and these virtual platforms and this entire digital, or these entire digital environments. But things kind of went wrong. It didn't go the way that they imagined. Their vision didn't come to fruition, if you will. The VR and the virtual worlds, they didn't go mainstream the way that they had hoped. That was one of the things.
Yeah, thinking about, back in 2021 when Metaverse first came into our attention, I think a lot of other tech companies tried to follow suit, building their own version of their own Metaverse.
Yeah,
but
you
now
can have your own avatar and start conversations with your friends online. And I'm not getting that solid concept of a metaverse, but I can understand what that kind of big image or imagination they want to have.
Yeah.
When we were in that era, because that was the pandemic era, and people basically do everything online. And of course, people would imagine maybe if in the world that people have to do everything online and the metaverse, it is I think, middle ground between the reality and the virtual world.
I think it was a little bit too abstract for people to grasp.
Yeah.
At
and also
that time.
buying VR sets.
Yeah, I just think it was something that we use that expression, creating a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And I think that's what Zuckerberg did there. But it was kind of an interesting little peek behind the curtain of his creative mind, because you could see where he was coming from. But the fact of the matter is that people didn't naturally integrate it into their daily life. So they didn't fully abandon the metaverse, but over time, the company stopped being it stopped being the central identity of the company. And it was a few years later, actually, between 2023 and 2025, that Meta began kind of quietly scaling back the intensity of the push for the metaverse. And they shifted their focus back to AI development and Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp, things that they own, and also advertising, which is still their core business. So why I bring this up as an example is because the company invested a tremendous amount of money into one idea. And when a company does that, it can be very difficult to step back and say, maybe this isn't the right time for this. Maybe the concept is too early for people. Maybe if we wait 20 years or something, this can be successful. But right now, I think it's wise to pull the plug. And like I said, they didn't fully pull the plug on it, but they did say, this isn't the right direction for us, not in terms of this heavy an investment of our money and our time and our efforts.
They are, I think, still doing these kind of things, just in a way that it goes with the current society right now. For example, the VR glasses that they're working on, they are really good.
They haven't abandoned the concept completely or entirely. It's just they also didn't say, we have to make this work. They didn't go with that idea. They weren't being stubborn, so they shifted course a little bit.
But when it comes to the business world, there are also cases and examples that a whole project or a whole product just got sort of somewhat cancelled or dropped because they find either the entrepreneur or the business world decide it's not working anymore. For example, this company called Tiny Speck.
Yeah. So have you ever heard of this? Maybe not, right? So their main project was this online video game. It was called Glitch. And it took them years to build it. They spent a lot of money they put into that project. Also, a ton of emotional investment went into it as well. But when they launched it, it just didn't take off. They didn't have enough users to survive. So this is an interesting story, because what that company did was, when they were building the game, they had created an internal chat tool for their team members to communicate with each other while they were working. And they had no intention of that being a product whatsoever. It's just something that they were using from employee to employee to talk to each other. But they noticed something interesting. The chat tool worked super well.
Better than the game itself?
Better than the game itself, actually. Better than the game they were trying to build. So that company, they shut down the game entirely. They didn't try to tweak it. They didn't try harder. They just said, that's it. They fully ended it. And when they did that, they focused entirely on the messaging tool. And that turned into something called Slack. Slack is a major workplace communication platform used by a number of different companies around the world. And again, it's another example of a company saying, we are not going to be stubborn. We are not going to say we need to be successful with this project. They recognized that it wasn't working. They pulled the plug and they went in a different direction, and it turned out to be the right thing for them.
It feels like it's probably when a lot of people think when they are trying to not work too hard, but work smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, of course, we're saying that sometimes that kind of stubbornness is kind of needed when you're trying to achieve something. But in the world that is changing so fast, maybe a little bit of mind twist can find you another way.
would there be Chinese? I'm guessing there are a lot of Chinese companies that did something similar, came out with an idea, but then changed course.
When it comes to tech companies, I think we always see a trend of when a new concept pop up on the market. A lot of, basically all of the tech companies trying to follow suit. For example, when companies first have their cloud services, every tech company started building up their own cloud services. But I think earlier this year, one of the tech companies decided to basically close their cloud services simply because there's no point continuing down on that path. They have bigger competitors on the market providing better and bigger cloud services, and their user base isn't big enough, so that tech companies decide to close their cloud services. It's a small news, even, that's why they close it, I guess. Even the news of they closing it didn't really stir much
really
of an
big
attention on the market. So that's one example. But when I think there are other examples, bigger ones, more well-known ones, right?
Yeah, I can think of one. It is actually a phone manufacturer that is called Smartisan, and I actually kind of in favor of this smartphone. It used to have quite good reviews when people were actually using it, no matter it's the hardware and software. But the thing is that they didn't really succeed and didn't survive in the whole smartphone industry. But the founder, I think he understood that he has a personality that a lot of people loves. So instead of keeping that kind of stubbornness of making, of course, he had some sort of stubbornness in making phones. And I also think that is one of the reasons that a lot of people love his product. But the thing is that he didn't keep that kind of stubbornness in the way that keep having the phone brand. But he turned his whole, I think, the personality fandom into another way, which is his e-commerce commercial live stream. And then he actually had quite a success in that area, and I think he had made a lot of money and cleared some of his debts.
Yeah, he went into huge debt because of that
Yes.
smartphone project.
Oh, and then when he did the e-commerce thing, he was able to be successful there.
And I think he was claiming that he's probably also had the plan to maybe restart another brand or something. It is not really a very solid thing that I got, but the thing is that he, I think, changed the direction very quickly, and also along the current situation when the society is really focusing on the efficiency of all of these live stream e-commerce platforms. And also he used the thing that he got, that is the personality and all the way he can sell products.
So this is what I wanted to ask about, because we've given the examples of major companies, right? But these concepts apply to us as individuals as well. Like you said in the beginning, Fei Fei, we love a story of perseverance. We love it. But why is it that we romanticize those kind of stories of never giving up?
Well, I think on some level, giving something up costs you more than continuing down the old path.
What do you mean?
For example, it's another story when it comes to businesses, because when it comes to businesses, I think people can be more cold, that you are not essentially emotionally attached to a lot of your jobs. But when it comes to, for example, a relationship, a friend that you've been known for several years, just completely cut him or her out of your life is a very, very difficult decision to make. And especially when it comes to romantic relationship. What if, the question always lingers, what if he changes? What if things will turn around maybe next month?
Things will get better.
Yeah, and this hope is sort of dragging you down that path of continuing down. Also because you've known that person, you've been on this job for, a year or maybe a decade. It's somehow still in your comfort zone, even though it's the wrong choice. So when you are thinking about, changing gear, going to a completely different direction, quitting it feels harder, isn't it?
But I feel that we're not saying that, okay, just give up the perseverance. Just change the direction right after when you're thinking something is wrong. It is not. Because what we are saying or what we are talking about are some of these very famous examples, and maybe they have other quality that other people don't have. That's what we call kind of survivorship bias. That's when we see all of these successful examples in the world, but they are probably just one of the million. So, of course, perseverance is also very important. And other thing is that when people are saying it is really important, it's because there is one thing, the sunk cost, when we have been putting a lot of
The
effort,
trap.
yes,
Yeah.
in this already. And then maybe people will think if you work a little bit harder more, then you can get the success.
Then here is the tricky question. How do you tell between the lines of whether you are having that good quality of perseverance with you are now being stubborn and trap yourself in a very difficult situation?
Well, if you use the sunk cost trap as an example, then you're only focusing on the time or energy or money that you've invested.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the results and you're not looking at the direction. So if you're in a relationship, for example, and you say, oh, but I've been with him for 3 years, you're focusing only on the time. You're not focusing on the quality of the relationship. You're not focusing on the direction of the relationship. So don't just look at those things. You have to look at the bigger picture and say, has this been improving over time? Is this still aligned with reality? Is this improving the quality of my life or is it not? Ask those questions. And I gave the relationship example, but you could talk about your career. You could talk about your business, your friendship, whatever the case is. If you ask those questions and get the answer, then it might be easier to make the decision.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting discussion, but I think I'll leave that verdict to our listeners because in Chinese we have 如人饮水,冷暖自知. Like drinking water, only the person drinking it knows whether it's too hot or too cold. Only you know how something truly feels.
You just have to know if your opinion is worth trusting or not.
Yeah, but that brings us to the end of today's roundtable. Thanks, Steve and Yushun, for joining the show, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host today, Fei Fei, and I'll see you next time.